Hi, Smart News. Happy Veterans Day. Hope you're off to a great day so far. And I'm really excited to just take a little pause from the news today and talk to you about the history of Veterans Day with some very special guests. In fact, the guest that I thought I was going to have join us just is driving out of our driveway, but we have a surprise guest that's also going to join us. It's all going to work out, I promise. And we're going to get some veteran voices, which I think is what's really important about this day. But like most holidays that we celebrate, what we think of the holiday and where the holiday actually came from and how it evolved is a little bit different. So while everyone's jumping on this live, I thought, let me just give you a little bit of a background to this. So, we can trace Veterans Day back to Armistice Day of World War I, right? The war to end all wars. And armistice, or when everyone was going to stop fighting, was the 11th month, the 11th month on the 11th day at the 11th hour. And actually, we have a picture. Let me pull it up for you, of 2 minutes before everybody laid down their arms in World War I. Now, it took a while before the war ended, but the idea of this is going to be the war to end all wars is something that continued. And so the celebration of this day continued for years, but it kind of evolved into celebrating peace. And the trouble is with celebrating peace is that there were other wars. So you had World War II, you had the Korean War, and then there were those that raised the red flag in the 1950s and said, you know what, maybe we need to think about this and make it Veterans Day. That also evolved because there were those that wanted to make Veterans Day a 3-day holiday, because many think that 3-day holiday adds an economic boost to the American economy. So that's why we have, Memorial Day, celebrate that, Martin Luther King Day. We celebrate that as a 3-day holiday. And so Veterans Day was sort of maneuvered to be like that. And then back in the 1970s, it was like, yeah, actually there's a historical purpose to this day, 11th month, 11th day, 11th hour. And we need to celebrate that. And so we continue to celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th. And now it's Veterans Day. So there's no apostrophe anywhere. It's just veterans overall. Veterans overall. So any veteran we celebrate today in the United States. And of course, there's traditions elsewhere throughout the world today. So just a couple little background on that. One of the things I want you to pay attention to in the news, and something I'm really sensitive to, so 2 things. I'm a wife of a veteran. I tried not to date him, actually, because I wanted to maintain my nonpartisanship. But I actually think meeting someone who is active duty, marrying him, now living the life of a wife of a veteran is really important to me as a journalist. I notice the discrepancies in the news because you can see those that have a personal connection to our nation's wars and those who don't. And I think that's really obvious. Listen, there's really important news coverage when it comes to veterans and PTSD, suicide. You hear these stories a lot. You might hear them a lot today as well. And these are critical stories and really important stories. But we're about balance, right? We also want to tell the stories of courage and honor to make sure that we tell a complete story about our nation's veterans, right? It's a statistic, less than 1% of the American population chooses to serve or serves the country. So this is a rare group of people. And if you're a rare group of people, sometimes your voice is not as represented as others. So let's do something a little bit different today. I'm going to see if I can invite a friend in. And this is as my husband was going to join us for our live. He realized that he had to get to the office. So I'm inviting in a colleague of his and also a friend of mine, and we'll see if he can join us. I don't want to introduce him too soon to see if we can get the connection to work. It's always a little bit of a wonder if it's going to happen. And if you guys have any of your personal, stories that you'd like to share, whether it's through service or as a family affair, because Veterans Day is really a family affair, then we can do that as well. So let me see one more time. Trying to invite a couple folks in. They could be denying me, which would be really sad. Let's see if I can get them in. Beth, you have a question about, my husband and I were talking about this morning. Are you a veteran after you're done with service, or active service members as well? That's an interesting question. Oh, unfortunately, he's not able to join. Let's see if I can get him in. This is our, veterans can do a lot of things. Let's see if they could do an Instagram live. There he is. No offense, Jocko, but I just was wondering if you could figure it out. I know you're like really savvy about the social media thing, but
tech savvy, super social media savvy. Even I was able to figure it out. I'm amazed.
Yes, yeah. Well, I appreciate Jocko. I texted Jocko this morning and said, "Hey, Leif is going to join us for an Instagram Live on Veterans Day." And then Leif, in typical fashion, realized that he has a meeting at almost the exact time that he agreed to do an interview with his wife. So priorities are pretty obvious here, Jocko.
We,
Um,
we do talk about prioritize and execute, and it's
you know what?
you got to prioritize, young lady.
You're right. You're absolutely right. All right, Jocko. Well, happy Veterans Day.
Oh, thank you.
What do you think about Veterans Day? How do you feel about it?
I think it's a good day to, salute the troops for sure. But like Leif, I'm working, so it's all good.
Why did you choose to join the military in the first place? Where did that come from?
I wanted to run around in the woods with a machine gun my whole. I was a little kid,
Clearly.
tasked with the Special Operations Command has a podcast, and I was on there. This guy threw me this softball question about, hey, when you were young and you realized that you wanted to choose a life of service and sacrifice, you realized you wanted to put something above yourself. Can you talk about those reasons why you wanted to join the military? And I said, hey, man, I literally just carry a machine gun. That's it. You could try and make me look all cool and nice and, putting others before myself. I wanted to carry a belt-fed machine gun. That was kind of it.
I just gave everybody this wind up that we need to have balance about veterans and talk about courage and honor. And you're kind of taking us to the lowest common denominator, as usual, Jocko. Thank you so much for that.
You can always do that.
We had a great question actually that just popped up on our feed about, how we should actually talk to veterans on Veterans Day, because sometimes it does make people a little uncomfortable to say, thank you for your service, or any tips on that, Jocko, about how, somebody that served, you can see that they're serving. What do you think is the most comfortable and appropriate way just to say thanks?
I think just that standard thank you for your service is good to go. And yeah, I think that's good to go. I mean, could you run into someone it makes them mad? I guess would get mad at that, but for me, it's all good. I just, I tell people thanks for your service. All good.
Okay, and so going back to your belt fed machine gun imaginaries play when you were a child, this is going to get really deep. When you think back on your service, and because obviously you've taken what you've learned in the military, and you and Leif and your entire team have taken those lessons and then channeled them into books. You have a new book out that I think we should also talk about. Not meant to be a book promotion, but I think it's important. Talk to me a little bit about how you're using what you learned in your time in the military to everyday life, and why you think that matters, like why that's actually important. That's an important experience to apply.
Yeah, we got really lucky because, we learned about leadership inside the military, but I was completely institutionalized. I didn't know anything about the civilian world. I didn't know about civilian people. Definitely didn't know about civilian businesses. But I did know a lot about leadership inside of a SEAL platoon and a SEAL task unit. And when right before I retired, I happened to go talk to a civilian company about leadership and immediately realized, oh, every problem that they have is leadership problems. Just like in the SEAL teams, when a platoon has a problem, it's a leadership problem. And the solutions in a SEAL platoon are the same solutions you would apply to a civilian company. So got very lucky in the fact that it just happens to transfer across directly. And now it's great for us to be able to take these lessons that we learned and pass them on and share them so that other people don't have to learn the hard way, which in many cases we did.
Yeah, you also are invited. I mean, I just want to make clear, you still don't really fit in with civilian decorum. You're still trying to figure that. Just want to, since we've known each other for so long, I just think I can add that insight to your many followers. But you also are invited to give analysis. You're able to weigh in on news stories. And I'm just curious from a perspective. Obviously, I love the news. I think it's really important that we have nonpartisan news in America, and we're figuring out good ways to deliver it. But do you feel like there's a misrepresentation of the military or veterans in the news? Like when you're watching stories being told about the group that you belong to, what do you think about that, especially over the last couple months? Obviously, we've had some really big stories that have to do with Afghanistan and where our nation's at war. or was at war?
Well, I think just the news in general, the short form news where everything is whatever. It's a 2 minute interview. It's a 1 minute interview. I think, Jenna, when Leif and I were first starting to do these types of news interviews, and you were kind of preparing us, and you basically get to say one sentence, maybe two sentences. It took me a little while to figure that out, as you know, but you obviously can't really convey the different angles of these complex situations that are unfolding in a 3 minute segment. So, and yet that's what the news does. So that's why I prefer podcasts. I think you can get more in depth on some subjects, and you can really tear things apart, and there's no time limit. And I probably the extreme sometimes, because sometimes hours, which people don't have time for. So, I've started another podcast where we're doing shorter podcasts, so like an hour long, and we've done some kind of current topics related. We did one on Afghanistan, talking about what happened from our perspective. So I think, to answer your question, no, 1.5 minute second or 1 minute segments of news do not convey news in a very robust way.
So getting back to that further, I don't know if you ever thought in your life that you would be telling stories about other veterans, which is something that you do very well and very successfully on your podcast and through your books and through your own experience. Is there something that you've learned from that has surprised you, even you, Jocko, about what you've learned about, those that served in the American military?
Yeah, it's been such an honor to have these veterans on that I have on my podcast, and either I have them on or I'm just reading their books, and either one of those is such an honor for me to be able to do. And I learned something every single time. It's absolutely amazing. I can't even fathom the amount of things that I've learned from the veterans that I've had on. So yeah, I learned something new every single time. Absolutely, 100%.
Do you have a favorite?
This is the Sophie's Choice question that I get, and I'm not going to answer it. As
I think I've taught you that too, by the way. I think that might have been something that maybe a tip I gave you in the past about not answering a question, which is coming back to haunt me.
What's that? Don't answer questions?
Or just take the question into a different direction. I see a friend of yours that wants to join. It's not my husband still. I just want to point that out, Jocko. I'm actually gonna give you an out from that. But JP said that he's standing by, so I thought JP could come hang out with us too. I mean, why not? I know you probably have to go too. Oh, look at this guy coming in. Hey, JP, how are you?
Hey, how are you? What's up, Jocko?
So JP Donnell, also a colleague of Jocko's at Echelon France, and a former Navy SEAL, and using lessons learned in the military to apply to everyday life and also through the business world as well. And apparently just got off a plane, which is now he's jumping on our Instagram Live. Hi, JP, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
What do you think of Veterans Day?
It's an awesome day. I mean, I don't know if you asked this to Jocko because I just got on here, but it's not about us. It's about all the other veterans. And I'm sure Jocko gets super uncomfortable like Leif does, like I do, when people are constantly, hey, thank you for your service, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. But I mean, it's, I don't, I always love Veterans Day because my grandfather served in the military. And I was always I had aunts and uncles that were in the military and cousins before I joined. And so I was always very thankful of their service and thankful of Veterans Day. And I mean, I grew up playing Navy SEALs. All I wanted to do was serve in the military. So I was always very thankful of our veterans. And now on Veterans Day, I've had multiple memes sent to me by my buddies, and they're like, this is you on Veterans Day. And it's somebody like hugging this kid and says, thank you for your service. And then they roll a little arrow, it says you, and the person's sitting there with their arms down their side like they don't know what to do. And it's just funny. But, one of the things that I learned from Jocko and Leif when I started working for them at Echelon Front 5 years ago was a simple reply of thank you. It was our honor to serve is an absolute fact. And it's something that's the truth that I just say every time. Hey, thank you. It was my honor to serve. And I served with a lot of amazing soldiers, Marines, airmen, and sailors over my time. And I did a short little 12 years compared to a lot of our guys in our community.
Yeah, I asked. It's funny, JP. You actually just gave exactly a good. You and Jocko are almost the same in that you were both like wanting to join the military very young. Jocko says he's not uncomfortable when people say Happy Veterans Day, but you basically summed up exactly the question that I was trying to get Jocko to respond to. So thank you for that, JP, for you know picking up the slack. I really appreciate that. And just curious about your service. Obviously you teach leadership every day. And Jocko, this is a question for you too. And then I'll let you guys go because I think Leif actually does want to talk to his wife, but I don't know. He's still not answering my request on Instagram, which is really not good.
Well, he just commented on here, so.
Yes, see, he's probably just enjoying this. So, is there a particular lesson from your service that you think most applies, that you talk about the most in your work on a regular basis, whether it's to people and corporations or in your personal life, let's say in your marriage or fatherhood, that you think, man, that was a real lesson that I learned from the military and my service that really gets applied other places?
I'm pretty sure Jocko's going to say something along the lines of humility or discipline. And I just flew in from an event, and that's what I was talking about last night, was just the importance of humility and staying disciplined. This company I was working with they're growing and expanding, but they're having a lot of issues right now because of the last 18 months, like most companies are. And the theme was, staying disciplined as they're growing and expanding, but also remaining humble at the same time. And I look back when I was younger in the teens, and it's kind of embarrassing when I think back to those days where I lacked humility. And luckily I had good leaders like Leif in SQT that had a very professional, good way of reminding me of of how to stay humble and keeping me in check when I was that young, wild kid. And I say kid because I was 18, 19 years old when I first started working with Leif. And then when I was 22, when I first started working with Jocko, Leif, and Seth, the importance of humility was a huge one. And I wish I would have done a better job at remaining humble throughout the years.
JP, I have to ask you a question. Are you driving right now?
I am not driving. Amanda's driving.
Oh, she is. Can I say hi to Amanda?
She's not going to hear you, but yes.
I'm going to. Yay! So I just want to share this quick story, and then you could relay it to Amanda. Okay. I don't know if other veterans' wives have this experience, but Leif will be doing a million things in the car, and then he'll be like, and I'll get mad, because I'm like, you're not paying attention. This is, keep your eyes on the road. And he'll be like, I got training for this. And he tries to give me that, we were trained for this in the military.
I may or may not have responded to Amanda with the same type of answer when I've been doing too much in the vehicle. But now it's to the point where she goes, hey, I know you had all this training in the SEAL teams, and I'm like, check, roger that. And I'll stop doing all this stuff.
You'll stop? You'll stop?
Well, not right away, but eventually when I'm done, okay, I will stop doing all the stuff I'm doing.
Put me under the bus here, JP.
I'm not saying I stop. I'm just eventually when I'm done doing those things.
Jocko, was JP right? I'm ignoring my husband, by the way, because he's late. I just was wondering if JP was right about how that's what you would say are the most common lessons learned from service, not only how to evade arguments with your wife by saying that you have taxpayer training to get you through obstacles that might be in front of you, including traffic. I'm just wondering if there's other lessons that you've learned that you think are most applied, is your go-to. And by the way, if anyone has any questions for Jocko, JP, and Leif, I'd love to ask them. We're going to have to let them go in about 6 minutes. But Jocko, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, JP gave the same answer I'd give. Humble, you learn, you prove you got to control ahead of yourself. So it all.
Sorry, Jocko, you're cutting in and out. Leif, Leif's moving now. I didn't know if something was going on with the connection. Um, Leif, happy Veterans Day. Nice of you to join us.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we're just talking about, Leif, is applying your service to everyday life. And I wanted to give people more of a well-rounded view of veterans than what maybe some of the more typical stories that they'll hear in the news. And I know that's something that's really important to you. But what do you think of like how veterans are represented in the news and like what you actually know of veterans through your work at Echelon Front and through your experience in the military?
We get to work with awesome veterans all the time, and that's what I love about working with Jocko and JP. And I mean, these are, my closest friends in the world that I get to go and serve with and talk about lessons learned about. And we work with veterans all over the place all the time. I think there is a mindset sometimes of people that don't know veterans, or they see things in the news and they hear all these horrible stories about the tortured veteran, on the ragged edge. And there's people that have been through a lot of traumatic experiences. But most veterans are doing well. And, that like us, learned a ton from their military service. I wouldn't trade up my military service for anything. I know Jocko and JP feel the same way. And, we were able to take that service and apply it in other aspects of our lives. And I don't know where I would have been without serving in the military. I'd probably be in jail. So it definitely is, changed the course of my life. And so I think in my view, most veterans are not people that are suffering, but actually people that are doing well and raising their families and strong members of their communities and leading businesses and doing great things in the world.
Well, I'm glad I didn't marry a criminal. I'm glad that didn't work out that way. Some of people are asking like how we met. If Ryan Job actually introduced us, and Ryan Job did not introduce us, but he's one of the reasons why Leif and I ended up meeting in this Brady Bunch circle here. Okay, quick final question for you guys. Do you have, and this is coming up in the feed, do you have a favorite memory from your service? Could be during combat, could be training, but like a favorite memory that comes to mind that always makes you happy, makes you laugh, makes you think about, how great it was to serve. Leif, you get to go first because you're late.
Man, that's so hard to narrow down. I mean, there's so many of them. There's so many. JP just talked about when we were working together at SQT. I was the old man, the crusty old man at 26, at 27 years old. And so it was, I mean, those were awesome times. I mean, going through buds was awesome times. Serving in combat, I think, is the best of times. It's both the best and worst of times. We had some dark days where we lost brothers, Mark Lee and Ryan Job, horribly wounded, and Cowie and Mike Monsoor. I would trade those days for anything, but most of the days that we served together, I think particularly in the most violent and difficult battlefield that I got to deploy to in Ramadi in 2006 were also the greatest days of my life. I mean, there's so many times where we're laughing and joking and just having a great time, knowing that we were on the side, the righteous side of good and making a difference in the world. I wouldn't trade those days for anything. There's so many memories.
JP, what do you think?
I was on a rooftop in Ramadi in 2006. We'd engaged a couple enemy fighters, and those guys were smart, so they found out our location, and they were bringing the absolute heat to us. And I actually have a video that was on an old camera of mine, and it's myself, Seth, Mikey, and a few other guys kind of hiding behind the wall on the rooftop while we're getting shot at. They fired rockets at us, and you could hear like the outside of the building getting shot up and hit by stuff, and we're just laughing. And you just hear Seth laugh, and you hear the other guys laugh, and one of the guys gives this little symbol, and I look over to Mikey, and he's like crouched down, and he's sitting there laughing, and we're just up on top of the rooftop laughing our asses off as we have multiple enemy fighters shooting all different weapons at us. And we let that happen, and then we did what we did afterwards, and they were no longer an issue. So I just remember that day because I just remember Seth's laugh Mikey's laugh, and the other guy up on the the other guy on the rooftop. I called him the Badger when I was on Jocko's podcast. His laugh as well, and it's an awesome video. And I guess that would be a top ranking one.
Yeah.
Hard to think about the best day.
I don't think people necessarily have that vision of when they think about war if they haven't actually been in combat. Jocko, what about you? Do you have a favorite day? You're looking very serious. You're doing that very serious Jocko furrowed brow, famous look now.
It's up all the I remember we were about to go. Obviously, it'd been great, very hard to find. Who was a guy named Garland, who actually reached our general. But it basically last home. He said, "Thank you. That hundreds of my soldiers and Marines are going home. What you and your guys did, and for all the sacrifice." And you can say what you want about, should we be in Iraq? Should we not be in Iraq? Did we win? Did we lose? All those things. You can argue those things, but it was an honor to know that that there was hundreds of soldiers and Marines that were able to go home because of what the guys did out in the field. So I would say that was a good day that I remember. Put it all in perspective.
Yeah, we're getting. I think we got the whole part at the end, Jocko. I've got a little audio issue, but I'm hopeful when we save the video, maybe it'll save a little bit better. I did get a question about whether or not you drink warm elk blood, and I was just wondering if you could answer that before we go. Is that something that you do, Jocko?
Yeah, this is just piping hot elk.
Cool. I'm glad we could just deliver the truth as we do at Smarter News on a regular basis.
It would be awesome
Right.
for me to puke on my first Instagram live. That would be awesome.
Is this your first Instagram live? Is this really?
Oh, with you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
But,
I did.
But yeah, with somebody else, to join with somebody else. Yes. So thank you for
great.
that. Thank you for your service today.
Yeah. Let me just tell everybody, handling these guys is a service all its own, and you're welcome, because it's exhausting. Clearly, you can tell. All right, guys, I know this has been a little bit longer than I promised. So usually when I say 10 minutes, I mean 30. Thanks for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, so if there's more questions, then maybe we could have you guys jump into our comment section later and, talk about warm elk blood or anything else. Also, I'll put the name of Jocko's new book that just came out, fiction book. Jocko, do you have one on your desk? There you go. Final spin. That was not planned because Jocko was not planned to join us. But thank you, Jocko, for stepping in when my husband dropped the ball. And thank you, Leif, for marrying me, even though you're a lot of work. And JP has been an amazing supporter of Smarter News. I appreciate that, JP. And say hi to Amanda. I'm so glad you're not driving. I really thought you were driving. I really thought we were going to have an intervention. And I'm so glad that's not the case. So
I mean, we should definitely have an intervention, but not now because I'm not driving. So we're good.
All right. Well, happy Veterans Day, you guys. Thank you for your service. Thank you for joining us at Smarter News. And Leif, I'll see you later. Jocko and JP, I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
Yep, sounds good. Oh.